Live here. Probably just give people a second to kind of join and come in. This is going both to YouTube and Twitter, so we'll just give people a chance to kind of collect themselves. But how you guys doing today?
Fantastic, man. It's Friday.
Friday. You
Pretty
kidding me?
freaking good, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you guys making the time to come and talk to our community and the broader Avalanche community and hopefully your community about the Operators NFT collection, the game itself, and kind of what's coming. I think there's a couple of really interesting ways to cover this that could give people some really good insight into not just the game itself, but your team and game production and how you guys are thinking about this and how you guys are bringing elements to Web3 gaming that Web3 gaming hasn't seen yet, right? Things that exist and have existed in traditional gaming for a long time. And I think it's going to be really cool to see what you guys are able to offer to this with this growing gaming vertical. But before we get into that, I want to just allow you guys to say hello. And, Francis, we can start with you if you want, just, kind of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So, Francis, I'm on the business development team, also help with some tech integrations and economic design. I've been in crypto for quite a while, so I'm more of one of the Web3 people in the team as opposed to being kind of the traditional Web2 game designer. Background is an aerospace engineer, so I like to get very technical and deep into things.
Mm-hmm. So just real quick before we move on, I'm curious. Aerospace engineer to Web3 gaming. What's the stepping stone in there?
Yeah, so I used to do a lot of kind of programming in terms of reinforcement learning applications into things like drones and any kind of systems design. And then that led me into programming, which kind of morphed into my interest in algorithmic trading. And then I got into crypto through there. So,
yeah. So interesting.
Big brain.
The thing you have to, and just got to throw this down, the thing you've got to understand about a Francis. The first time I got a chance to hang out with Francis, we were in a room and we were discussing the physics and actuality of what would happen in the event of what goes on in our narrative, which is an asteroid hits the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And as one does or doesn't normally do, Francis began to write out the equations on the whiteboard for how it would actually work so that we could figure out if we were making shit up a little too much.
Uh-huh.
Come to find out, he's a really smart dude.
Yeah.
He puts the science in science fiction.
That's great. Well, cool. Thanks, man. Mark, what about you?
So I'm Mark. They call me Marky because my last name starts with Y, and we have other Marks in the studio. I've been making AAA video games for over 20 years, and I've shipped games on almost every platform, from handhelds to console to PC. I came up through the audio space as a music composer, voice director, sound designer, and at Xbox, I was an audio director. When I got to HBO, I met the founding crew for Shrapnel, and we started this company, and we looked at each other like, everyone's super capable. What do we need? What does the team most need right now? And when Shrapnel got funded, what we really needed was community. Community is so important in Web3. I just raised my hand and I said, I will take this and I will devour this, and it's going to be super fun. So, and it has been really, really fun. Learning a ton along the way about Discord engagement and growing Twitter, and learning a lot from the biz dev team. They're a bunch of Web3 DJs and I love them, and they're teaching me all the slang and all the emoji mash and like just so many things, and it's just it's on fire right now. But yeah, my background is in music and specifically drumming and songwriting, but now I'm doing marketing.
Call sign drum major.
That's right. We all have call signs in the studio. On our business cards, it says our name, our like formal title, and then Joshua was like, gotta put a gamer tag in there.
Got to put a call sign.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Joshua?
I'm Joshua Davis, head of experience here at Shrapnel. I came from vast and long background in design, specifically started in .com, then into interactive. 06, I transitioned into the game industry, starting my career at EA Sports, working on titles like Madden. My core background is in interface and user experience design, and have like 20 AAA titles shipped between then and now. Yeah, came to Shrapnel to help move the game industry forward, using this new technology and what it's going to enable us to do from an experience standpoint. So, yeah, it's me.
Wow, very very cool. Yeah, I think you'll have a lot to say. Kind of, I'm curious about your observations about this stuff so far relative to your past career, but we can get into all that. But the primary purpose of today is to talk about the operator's NFT and the upcoming mint. So I want to give people a sense of, well, first and foremost, what they'd be minting, but also how this ties into the broader experience of the game, and why it's important move for the game. And I think we can have a pretty good conversation from there. So I don't know who wants to take it, and I'll let you guys choose. But who can give us like the kind of high level on the operator's NFT as a starting point?
Marky, me, you.
I can take a swing. So it's an NFT profile pick batch. There's 10,000 of them. It's first of all, it's gorgeously rendered. The artwork is fantastic. Our art team is, AAA video game team, and it was created in Unreal Engine. And so later we can get into how the art was made, and Joshua knows all that. But I think what a lot of early curious folks will want to know is about the utility of it. And we packed a lot of utility in, made the artwork beautiful, and kept the mint price really low. So we want to invite people in. It's all about user acquisition and building our community for our game. The utility includes early access to the game, exclusive in-game assets for operators holders, free NFT comic book where the character in the book is associated with the character of the operator you're holding. It's got future whitelist opportunities and future airdrop opportunities that is kind of mapped to the rarity of the operator that you randomly get. And there's behind the scenes content and exclusive community content that we're going to push out to operators holders as well.
Okay, that's a
There's a ton.
Yeah, Joshua, did he miss anything?
Yeah, man. So there's this a really important aspect of this particular part of our project. I think what makes Shrapnel really special is we are a transmedia studio. So what that means is, yes, we come from AAA video games and shipping, best in class interactive experiences, but really we're storytellers and world builders. And Shrapnel set about to craft a world in which we can tell stories. Some of those stories will be interactive in the form of gameplay. Some of those stories will be, sort of more linear in the form of consumative content. So, Marky had mentioned have a couple of comic books, right? So we put together a set of 5 comic books. Those comic books are stories from Shrapnel, right? So they're not necessarily the video game Shrapnel represented in a comic book. They're more stories from the world of Shrapnel. Each of them represent a main character at a different point in the timeline of what we call Earthfall. From the beginning of Earthfall, when the major event happens that's catastrophic and has the impact on the Earth that it does, all the way up to modern times, which is where you segue into the actual game space, like the same time and destination of gameplay. So each of the operators that we're minting, starting with Aniki, represent the key character, the main character from each of the 5 comic books. And so we'll begin with book 1. Character 1 is Aniki, and then we will go through the series of 5 books over the course of the mint for each of the NFTs, which will then directly relate to each of the comic books. So when Marky mentions airdrop of comic book, what he's collecting Aniki, you'll get an airdrop of Aniki story in the comic book that goes on there. And depending on the rarity of the Aniki in your collection, you might get things like an exclusive cover, a second cover. In the comic book world, those are big deals to have those sort of variations. And so that's where we as a transmedia studio are looking at, like, yes, make AAA video game. That's a thing we do. Also, not everybody wants to play video games, but they might want to jump into our universe. And so that's where having that transmedia experience to go craft these other entry points into Shrapnel is where we're going to bring more players to the game.
Yeah. And this is something that happens more often, right, in traditional gaming, like intellectual, TV shows, movies, comic books, this kind of stuff. What I wonder about, and I just want to diverge real quickly on the comic book, with the amount of content and story and creative that needs to happen around, writing a whole comic book and anything else that you might be doing. Like, how much of that story is, at what point do those stories become known in the broader context of the Shrapnel universe? I'm just a little curious about the creative process of that and making sure, as an experience, right, it's like compelling and consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to think about experiencing Shrapnel is, unlike a movie that you would go and watch and wait for the sequel, i.e. Top Gun, that we're taking the studio to see tomorrow. Yes. Unlike that kind of directly linear experience, we're trying to build a robust and rich world that has a tapestry of story that exists across this sort of broad timeline. So you can jump into the story at the beginning when Earthfall first happens. There's this major adapt to this significant thing. You can carry through to where the world is starting to adapt to this. It's now becoming normal, and it is now this new industry. And then you get into modern day, where we've transitioned from industry into the militarization of wanting to occupy or possess or maintain or own. And then there's this strife and conflict that breaks out. And so if you kind of go on those different legs of the journey, you can jump in at the height of action, which is where you're going to jump into the video game and go, seize, conquer, and defend. And you can jump into the beginning of the story and go on a lush narrative. We just recently had a fan fiction competition with our community, and man, some of the snippets that people put together coming out of like these different moments in the timeline of Shrapnel, the story potential is endless. And so when we think about the creativity that goes into it, it's as much us trying to discover the world that we're building and writing our own stories to kind of figure out where we're going, but it's also, laying a foundation for building this rich, robust world that people can come and jump into. And I really like the beginning of the chaos. I really like the end of the fight, and everything in between. So that's how we're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it also spills over to the game design and how we think about a gameplay session is the player telling their own story. So we talked to Clint Bundrick, our creative director on the game side. Clint is amazing. He comes from, everything from, making BioShock Infinite to Ghost Recon franchise. Like, he's got a ton of awesome AAA game experience. But when he thinks about the player's experience playing the game, it's a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so when you play the game, you will be telling a story in the world of Shrapnel. It's like, what operator class do I choose to be? What gear do I equip with before the match? What stakes am I playing for? Is it low stakes or high stakes? And then when I am in the match, how do I strategize? How do I get the lay of the land? Who do I partner with? And then later in the play session, there's an extraction moment, right? Where I have my loot. I've gathered what I can. Do I choose to get out now, or do I choose to extend my play session with increased danger and increased chance of reward? So there's that phased approach that's really a miniature narrative as you play the game. So you are telling your story while you play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting to consider that the story necessarily isn't known from start to finish at all points in time. I think it sounds like, at least, it's more about knowing how to create a foundation that can withstand future creativity, right? That can like stand up to that kind of thinking, right?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Um, so the mint date as of now is when?
Francis, tell the people.
So at the moment, we're looking at either June 9th or June 16th. The reason it's an either or is because we have a partnership with OpenSea. We're going to do a lot of co-marketing with OpenSea. We're going to be on the front page, and they have an internal product that they might be launching next week.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be a delay. Maybe.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So there's currently some deliberation on their side whether they're going to push forward and delay every single partner that they have. So it's not just us a week. So yeah, either June 9th or June 16th. We will keep you posted as we are finding out today whether that gets locked in or not.
Okay, cool. So inside of June, hopefully everyone knows how to wait a
Yes.
week. Okay, awesome. And so, what does that like the numbers on that mint look like? What's the structure of it?
Yes, so it is 0.05 ETH. There are 10,000 in every single collection, in the entire collection, and there are 5 unique characters within that collection. And each character will have a week for its own drop. So, say we drop on the 16th, the next drop will be on the 23rd, and it'll be a separate character. So there'll be 2,000 of each, and it'll be 1 week after the previous one for 5 weeks, all hosted on OpenSea front page. So, all there for the world to see.
Okay, cool. And in each of those 1,000, right, inside of the week, there's tiers of kind of rarity, right? So let's talk about that some. One, what are those numbers? And two, I think rarity in NFTs is kind of an interesting concept in and of itself, depending on what you're doing. Even if you were just selling um, pictures, like it's still interesting, right? Because you can start to play with ideas. In the context of a game, right, this kind of becomes more complex because it's starting to play into a bigger economy. So how are you guys thinking about like the rarity of these NFTs, and how did you design it?
That's a Joshua question for sure.
Yeah, so there's a couple of aspects. One, we wanted to make sure that the collectible itself was interesting and unique enough that we could create enough variety around a single character that still holds up. So if I have 5 of the same character in my collection, I have 5 distinctly unique images that sort of stand on their own, and I could swap them out on my profiles, and they would hold up and they would be distinctly unique. When we looked at the rarities, we wanted to think about ways that we could give everybody something unique enough in whatever they might happen to land on, whether it's a common or a rare or an epic or a legendary. Everybody gets a little something unique. And so the curve that we built into the rarity trait is about it graduating. So even if you get a common, you can be up in the higher rarity pool in the commons. And then as we think about the details of each of the traits, some traits may not have a visual representation. They may just have some data, and that's something people are going to want to look out for. We don't know, but what you will see is you'll see the beginning of our explorations of what characters look like, of what gear looks like, of what weapons look like in our world. You'll see the beginning of things that hint at where customization might come into play for players. As you look at parts and pieces of the gear, you'll see different graphics and different elements, and one could imagine that those then become sort of areas of customization within gameplay. And as we look at each of the collectible ranks or tiers of collectability, for me that also represents sort of the capability of creating rad for our players. So if you want to like turn your operator all the way up to 11, something like our legendary one of ones, you can absolutely do that. And that's the goal, is to sort of represent that level of awesome.
Interesting. So with this process of like revealing over time, right? Like I think that's pretty cool. So like and this I think goes back to sort of the idea of experience in games. The ability to excite people in a certain way over time, release information over time in a certain way. Is there something about like NFTs and Web3 gaming and your ability to create experiences that kind of excites you, that is maybe different or not necessarily available in Web2 gaming, maybe like
Oof.
NFTs and what they kind of are able to do over time, something of that nature?
For sure. I would go straight to the community involvement. When you think about
Yeah.
Web3 projects and the true ownership that is possible on the blockchain, that implies DAO governance and voting rights and creative input from the community, that's exactly what we love. That's exactly what we want.
Mm.
For us as AAA game developers, that is brand new, and it's
Mhm.
been wildly exciting so far, and it's going to get even more interesting as we have actual maps to be customized and actual vanity skins to be created with our creator tools. To me, it's the DAO governance and it's the creator community, that sense of ownership and contribution. So we're working together. We're not just publishing something out and selling it to people. We're actually listening to the community and inviting their input.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I want to like really double down on the idea of community and how it's a little bit different, right? We're all a bunch of old graybeards making video games for a really long time. And the thing, like as an experienced designer, the thing that I've always wanted to be able to do is go sit with my community in real time, get feedback, and participate with them in the creation of the thing that we're making for and with them.
Yeah.
And we've not been able to do that in traditional studios, right? And we've often said in some of these conversations, traditional way of making games is go tell people what you're going to make, go dark for 2 years, come back, show them a little bit of what you might have gotten close to what you told them you were going to make, go
Mhm.
dark, go another couple of years, come back and hope you got anywhere near what the original trailer looked like, right?
Yeah.
That's really hard. It's a really hard way of making. What happens in life in that window of time is immense. The
Yeah.
appetite for the thing you told them that you were going to go make on day one versus what you actually end up making changes over time. And when you go sit in a corner and sort of stare at your own belly button and make it all by yourself, you miss the huge opportunity of community signal. And I think
Mhm.
what we get in being in this new Web3 world is we, as sort of old school game makers, get to like peel off all that cruft and not be precious and open the doors of collaboration and creation with the community.
Mhm.
And like for me, that's the game changer. Like, yeah, we
Yeah.
know how to go make video games. We've done that a bunch of times. What's really compelling is we get to bring the community in, actively involve them, get them participating in the genesis of this thing we're doing together,
Mhm.
because that's how we're going to get to something that people actually want, is if they get to be a part of its creation. And then of course with the tools, being able to enable them to actually then create what they want to create in our world is, it's a very special combination of things.
And we're already starting to do it. Just to piggyback on what Joshua was saying, like we're already doing community votes in our Discord. So I want everybody to join our Discord and start to see the previews of concept art, see, understand our early concepts of characters, equipment, maps. There you go.
Shout out to our community who voted on the Sigma canister design. This
Yeah,
is now our primary asset.
and what we did
That
for that is with an early piece of really critical equipment. It's really the equipment that operators are using in the sacrifice zone to collect shrapnel. It's a dangerous material. They have to put it in a canister and contain it. That's not only a cool prop, an iconic prop in the game
Mhm.
visually, but it's also a piece of gameplay, right? And
Yeah.
so our art team designed 3D models, super high fidelity, of two different designs. And we said, hey, Discord, which one do you think is more cool? Which one would you rather engage with? And they picked this one that we nicknamed Rabbit's Foot. And now Rabbit's Foot is part of our lore. It's front page of our website. It's like everywhere. And the community chose that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do that repeatedly. We did the same thing with the community vote on environment. We said, hey, here's a data center environment on a stormy ocean, and it's imperiled by falling meteorites and other explosions. And then here's another environment that's like 30 years from now what the Golden Gate Bridge might look like, and it's all post-apocalyptic and stylized. We're like, here's two killer designs, really high fidelity, beautiful artwork. What would you rather play? If you're in a first-person shooter environment, would you rather play Golden Gate Bridge or Ocean Data Center? And they chose, and now that is everywhere. And that is also front loaded on our task list when we go to make games,
Yeah.
maps, I mean. So I love that, bringing the community in for input. We're always listening for good ideas. Some of the ideas are not binary votes. Some of the ideas are people brainstorming in Discord, and we're like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And we're commenting on their ideas and like, yes, keep them coming. Keep the ideas coming. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things, is to just going and hanging out in the Discord and not being game maker Shrapnel person, but like going and sitting in voice chat and talking to humans about things that are rad, and the ideas and inspirations that I'm getting from that every single day is, you don't like working on another really big, maybe space marine shooter game a long time ago. Our version of community was the forums, right? You come and you post on a forum, and you'd have to go read all the forums to keep up, and it's a totally different world, and I'm madly in love with it.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty fascinating, and I can see like the contrast, and I think it's kind of important to like recognize and acknowledge that this is a hard problem too, right? So with all like opportunities, like come new challenges, and so the idea of community in crypto is a big one, and the things you're talking about now are like really, really, really important. And at the same time, right, you have what would normally be a very expensive process that sits on rails to meet deadlines and budget and this kind of thing. And so balancing the community input and how it shows up in the game and in what ways is, you wouldn't necessarily think about it, but that's a big challenge, right? And Mark, you actually kind of went into a lot of the ways that you guys are doing that. So, and that would be my question. So what strikes me is just kind of cool is you guys are sort of like trailblazers in this for other large game efforts. You're kind of writing the playbook right now in real time about what works and what doesn't, and what excites people about engaging them in the community. Because you can say we're going to take community feedback and they're going to have a part in the game. That's great. Like that feels very good. But what does that actually practically look like for a game and a product that you want to be successful? So I think it's a cool thing to observe, and I feel like others will look at what you guys have done here probably and say and be able to take away something from it, which I think is also pretty important. So yeah, very, 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 very cool, and I'm sure that will continue to evolve as well. And it has to be, I would imagine, just a less kind of lonely process, right? You're not just in a silo somewhere observing what people are saying about you and your work from the outside, sort of. And I think that is also another great thing about crypto, is very human, and can make the work less lonely in some ways. So we have 5 weeks of mint coming up. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and someone actually was asking about it in the chat here, so I think it's probably a good time, is some of the tech side of this, right? Because you have a mint on Ethereum, a game being on Avalanche, subnet, right? So how are you guys thinking about this technology problem, this interoperability? I'll actually just read the question here because he basically asked the question that I was going to ask. I'm super interested in the solution you came up with, doing the drop on ETH and allowing trading on OpenSea. How have you solved the interaction between assets and ETHNet and the subnet? So that's Nicholas Lopez there. Thanks for the question.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll just go on to why we kind of chose ETH first, and then kind of dig deep into that question.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we wanted to do is this drop is to help build community and like kind of foster a good large number of people we can get behind, and they can vote on various content within the game and be kind of deeply ingrained within our ecosystem. And ETH has a huge community of NFT collectors. Avalaunch, unfortunately, not so much. But one of the things we can do with that is with technology such as Layer 0, which allows cross-chain messaging. There are other solutions out there such as Axelar and Nomad. We can actually port all of that NFT information over to Avalaunch if we want to. So any future airdrops that happen, we can prove that you own it on Ethereum, and we can provide those to you on either the subnet or the Avalaunch mainnet. So it allows us to bridge the gap between what most people, like if we were to become a very successful collection, all of the rewards for that collection would then happen on Avalaunch and help us grow that long-term sustainable Avalaunch NFT ecosystem. Because really, this project isn't just a 6-month one and done. This could take years to fully flesh out, make everything to the level that we want to make it, and we have to view it from that long-term perspective. So we need to take the steps now to help build the community that we want to have on Avalaunch later. And unfortunately, that means going to ETH. But fortunately, that means taking those users that will be on Ethereum and bringing them over to us on Avalaunch. So there's that. And then on the technical side, as I mentioned, the way we can do that is using cross-chain messaging. So you can prove ownership of your operator on ETH, and we can drop you things in an Avalaunch wallet that we've also proved is yours on Avalaunch. So as Nicholas kind of stated, it's an agnostic signature. We only care that that signature came from you. We don't really care where that signature is. So we can use one layer to store something and another layer to execute something. And we've also kind of taken that design into the subnet as well. It's about using the most efficient systems. I mean, ETH isn't necessarily the most efficient system, but we can take that into the design of the subnet.
And when you say you've kind of taken that into the design of the subnet as well, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the subnet, one of the amazing parts that Avalaunch has done is you effectively get a blank canvas where the whole design can be whatever it is that you want it to be. So we can take the most efficient parts of technology in terms of Avalaunch's consensus mechanism, maybe the storage system from new projects like Genesis Go. We can have roll-ups that just appear for short periods of time and then post the information to our chain. We have all this infinite level of freedom to do whatever we want, find what is both the most feasible and most efficient answer. So it really allows us to create this robust kind of set of tools that anyone else, once we finish productizing this and grouping a custodial wallet, a subsidized gas system to create a Web2 environment, all of this to make a perfect Web3 game that runs like a Web2 game, we can then allow other people that would come and create a game to just make the game. They could use our tech stack, but they could make the game on our subnet and create the environment that kind of many Web2 games are used to without having to create all that blockchain tech themselves.
Yeah, that's sort of the holy grail, I think, for Web3 user experience, and it applies to basically anything that you could build: games, DeFi, marketplaces. This concept of a normie or someone that's not interested in crypto interacting with these things, building them even maybe, and just not even really needing to care or know it. So any progress that you guys could make there for other game developers would be not only a tremendous benefit to the entire industry, but I think would be a real testament to your guys's skill and commitment, really, to what you guys are working on, right? Because it's a big design problem that still isn't really solved.
Exactly. And I think with the way we're building it and with the way Avalaunch has structured their tech stack, it allows us to just make it, and then it is not a very big jump from making it ourselves and using it ourselves to allowing other people to use it. So why not let them do that? Why not grow the space and make sure people see Web3 gaming as a serious thing? And if we can be a part of kind of that whole story and that whole creation of this industry and growing it, why not?
Yep.
Can I just add on one thing I heard Don say a while ago, and I'm going to butcher it because I'm not as technical or as smart as Francis, but another cool thing about subnets and why it makes sense for a AAA game, Ambition, to be on a subnet is because the user expectations of competitive gaming are very high, right? Yep. Subnet has to have guaranteed uptime. It has to have minimal latency. It has to have scalability to millions of daily active users. So all those things are criteria that, and all the authentication and all the matchmaking when you pick who's going into a match, and there's just a lot of data and a lot of security and a lot of response time that's super critical to making a AAA game experience. And the subnet paradigm allows us to approach it from a game developer standpoint at the highest quality. And because we can control the environment of the subnet, we can kind of like make a game the way we're used to making the best games in the world and approach it from that way, while the Avalanche piece does the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
adding.
Sorry,
go ahead,
Joshua. No,
go ahead, Francis.
you take it. Okay,
All
yeah,
right.
sure. Marky kind of summed that up perfectly. It's the flexibility. So it's not just for games. Anything that needs something, that can be satisfied by a subnet. If the technology is out there to do that in blockchain, the subnet allows you to do that on the subnet itself, which is the beauty of it. Like, that is the definition of something that's future-proof, and that is why we think Avalaunch subnets are revolutionary.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to add, Francis and Mark, you've been talking about, is something that's very important to us as a studio, that is really true to the spirit of the thing, which is, if we do this right, we will reduce the friction between players and blockchain. If we are thoughtful about the execution, players shouldn't have to care that this is on blockchain. They should be able to just come and play video game and have a lot of fun and engage in our world and have a good time. I think if we're able to accomplish half of what Francis has talked about, half of what Marky's talked about, and do it in a way that reduces that all the friction points, I think we will help move the industry forward. NFTs will, not be the topic of discussion the same way TCP/IP is not the topic of internet discussion. It's underlying technology that just makes the thing work. And if we do it right, players will just be able to come and hang out in our world and have a good time, and it'll just make sense for them. And whether a normie or full investor, doesn't matter. You get to have the experience that you want to have with the tech that we're putting together.
Yeah, and not to get too kind of nerdy or techie on this one, but there are actually 7 layers to the internet. Nobody is aware there are 7 layers to the internet. There could be 7 layers to a blockchain, but there is no reason you should actually know each layer that you're interacting with exists. And that's kind of the way you should think about this, is as blockchain progresses, we shouldn't be shoving things into your face to make it clear that blockchain is there. We should actually be taking them away.
Yep.
And you should, just like with the internet, you don't have to tell it to go to a certain, tell the kind of the IP protocols to go to the certain places. They should just do that because you said it. And there's no reason you should constantly have to sign transactions and spend gas when you're on a blockchain. And it's about bridging the gap so we're closer to what the internet is with its 7 layers, and just making it so you have no idea any of that super complex stuff is going on, and just have it happen for you and have it be super clean.
The only time you want to know about the 7 layers is when it's a tasty burrito.
Exactly.
Or when Francis is talking about it.
Or when Francis is talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, with even in centralized systems for large games, this stuff requires military grade precision, to keep these things running in the way that people expect, which is flawlessly all of the time, right? So and securely, right? I think it sort of can't be overstated what a hard problem this is, but the opportunity, the benefit, the yield on it is certainly there, and I think even for the reasons we were talking about earlier, right? Just what it means for game development, what it means for the industry, creativity, and interaction and this kind of stuff. But it is a genuinely hard problem. And I think any progress there is really, really, really meaningful because it is just so challenging. Going back to the operator NFTs a little bit, how much does the design process of those relate to the design process of the game itself? I mean, are these independent? Are these, is this kind of what we can expect to see from the team? How do you split that creative effort?
That's a good question. So in all things creative, it's a very messy process. And while it is additive to the overall thing, and while we thought, hey, we know 3D and we know Unreal and we know these things and we can go do this, what we didn't realize is, in order to do it really well, it's as you mentioned, Mark, it's really hard. Like, making AAA quality content is really, really, really hard. It takes an enormous amount of time to get the bar of quality up high enough that it represents where we're trying to go, right? And to think about the way that we go about making a game, or we went about making the operator project, the overarching statement is, what is the highest quality thing that we can do that represents the highest quality bar? It would be easy for us to just go crank out a bunch of speed concept paintings that have layers to them and ship them, but is that Shrapnel? Is that us? And the answer to that question is no. And what started off as what we thought to be a very short engagement opportunity project turned into a massive endeavor as a team to go develop new technologies, new ways of working together, new sort of directions for doing this process of creation. Yes, we used all the normal tools we would use to make video games, but we had to use them in a very different way. It's like flipping pancakes with your spatula, except you have to turn it around and use the stick end to get the pancake to flip over without folding it in half, right? You're still using the same tools, but you've got to come at it from a completely different approach. And so the assets that we created are the sorts of assets representative of what we expect to have in the game. They are of the quality bar that we expect to have in the game. They are not the characters that are going to be in the game, right? That's an important distinction. So you're not going to boot up and get to choose a Nikki and go play as a Nikki. That's not what we were trying to do. But what we really wanted to do was set a bar of quality, and do so with tools that we were familiar with, and it turned into a formidable challenge. I think if I do the math on it, we have something like 200 plus days invested in getting to the place where we can craft that image at the quality that we think is the right quality for our community.
Wow.
And representative of our project. And going back to like making games is hard. Yes, making games in Web3, when you take those two things and smash them together, it doubles the complexity of the thing. And what's crazy for us coming from Web2 to Web3 is video games at AAA quality are crafted in the measurement of years, not days, not weeks, not months, years. I worked on
Mhm.
BioShock Infinite for like 3, 4, 5 years. That
Yeah.
game was in production for 7 years, from the origination of the idea to being able to run Booker around the world, right? Like,
I know. Yeah.
this shit takes a really, really long time. And part of our opportunity is helping the Web3 community understand that, like, yeah, we totally want game today, right now. We want to be sharing game with you right now, but we also want to be making AAA content. We want to be true to the challenge that we've set for ourselves, and that takes time.
Yeah, yeah, that is certainly another new challenge, new problem that you guys have given yourself, which I think is is admirable. But again,
Make a video game, they said.
yeah, not an
That's a
easy.
good point. We signed up for this, right? We actually volunteered for this pain.
Yep. This is our
Right.
mission, and we are on it.
Joshua, you
Right.
brought up a good point with setting our community expectations. A lot of our community is accustomed to really fast turn around,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Announce, marketing, launch, done. It's very interesting. The culture of speed in crypto gaming is, and so there's mutual education. There's bi-directional education that has to happen. They teach us what their expectations are, and we're like, oh damn, we need to share progress every day so that they know that A, we're working our butts off, B, it's going to be worth the wait. But in the other direction, we have to educate them about how hard it is, how long it takes to actually make something of quality. That's what Joshua was saying. I was on Alan Wake, and that lasted 7 years. That was a 7-year development. And Halo 3 was a sequel, and it was 3 years.
Yeah, sequel in 3 years.
So yeah,
that whole shit was already there, and it still took 3 years.
Dude, I worked on a Call of Duty game, which was a spin-off on a secondary gaming platform, and it was like, that was I think that was a 2-year game as well. and that was not in the main franchise on console. So 100% agree. It's very different from what Web3 GameFi is accustomed to. It's not going to look or feel like your average mobile game. It's not going to be a Web3 skin on an existing successful game. It's going to be brand new, and it's going to be super high fidelity, very immersive on PC, and extendable through creator tools and subsequent launches. It's going to be huge, much bigger than most GameFi projects, I believe.
Yeah,
And go ahead, Francis.
There's like a completely new element that has to be considered in terms of user experience and game design, which is an entire economy. Part of the experience of the whole game is being able to log on and not think, oh, I've lost all my money because I decided to buy some assets in Shrapnel. And making sure that you have a robust, well-designed economy is not easy in both the real world and the fictional world. Like, it is a super complex problem. We still do have both internal and external economists working on it quite a lot. A lot of effort goes into this thing, and we will be releasing an econ white paper to show you both simulations and our entire process. That is a huge lift, and I think it's probably something that's new compared to other games that you guys have worked on as well, right?
Yeah, adding to sort of what Marky had said earlier, like, look, we see a trend of projects coming out. Week 1 announced, week 2 marketing, week 3 mint, week 4 they're gone. And it's easy for us to generate enough energy to sell tickets to fill up a football stadium, right? But at the end of the game, everybody goes home. And Shrapnel, we don't want anybody to go home at the end of the game. We want you to hang around. So could we go pump like that? Of course we could. But that doesn't set our community up to have a world that they can go engage in, not just today, but tomorrow, and an economy that they can participate in and help co-create with us for years to come. And the long game is what we're interested in.
Yeah, these FPS, the most successful FPS franchises have been around for 20 years.
Yep.
If you look at CSGO or Call of Duty, I mean, honestly, more than 15 years each, right? And because it's such a sticky gameplay mechanic, we're gonna leverage that and that guaranteed appeal that we know we can make it fun, and we know that there's an audience for that genre of gameplay. We're gonna pivot super hard into extraction mode, because extraction is just a wonderful metaphor for crypto and for the Shrapnel backstory. But
it's also fun as shit gameplay.
It's super fun. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're leaning into that proven fun gameplay where there's a proven audience, and we're hoping that it is a 10-year franchise, right? We don't want to exit early. I want to make it fun and sustain it with premium content and creator content for years and years.
Yeah, and like having creators on the platform. So if you look at, like, for example, CS:GO, Dota 2, they were mods of other games, Half-Life and Warcraft, and they've had 20+ year kind of longevity. Like, there's no proof that they're going to die anytime soon, so that could be 30, 40 years even. And then you look at Minecraft, Roblox, also creator platforms, and all they've done is grow since inception around 10 years ago. This formula of allowing people to create content and having that be the game appears to be something that gives you this like severe longevity and allows you to make this franchise last nearly forever, as opposed to doing like Shrapnel 1, 2, and 3 like some other studios do.
We want to build a world that our players can come tell their stories in and craft their experiences in. If we do it even half right, that's the magic for us.
Yeah, and that's the antidote, I think, to that. My camera just keeps turning off, so I'm gonna go off here. But that would be the antidote, I think, to that longer roadmap, that longer timeline, is the idea that what y'all are building. I mean, yeah, sure, it takes time, but it is because it's meant to endure and last and be here for a long time. So I think that can help most people understand. But it also really does take Mark, you made a really good point earlier about that education, and that education can only come with the community. Like, you have to have a way to educate people and a way to interact with them, and a way to re-educate them in a sense, right, about what they've come to know and expect, and that I think is a requirement moving further down the road and going in a different direction here. And with I know one of the features, right, of the NFT is some kind of early access potentially to gameplay. Correct me if I've gotten that wrong. Is that the case at some point?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Holders of Operators collection will be first in the door to put hands on the work that we're doing. Members of our community will be first in the door to be able to come and watch us make the thing and work with us on making the thing. And between those two, there's high potential to participate.
It's so inspiring too, because we're like, on our roadmap, we're going to keep making premium content into Shrapnel well after game launch, right? But we're making creator tools that enable new people, like brand newbies, just to come in and tinker, create a meaningful experience, share it with their peers in the community, buy and sell, trade. It's going to be very exciting. But there's always going to be the premium content that our dev team is making to go alongside the community created maps and skins. And we've already got people in our Discord saying, I want to learn Unreal. Or, someone in Discord saying, I want to learn Blender because, your 3D models are so badass. And it's just like this mutual inspiration, and we're just feeding back and forth. So, and it's just the beginning. I think by the time we get closer to having gameplay and game content, it's going to be vibrant. I'm so psyched.
Yeah, and holding tightly to the operator concept is hold operators get access to game,
and be able to provide feedback too, right? Like being maybe more directly involved in some way.
Totally.
In the creation of the process. So real ownership of just the asset, but also in some ways the game itself.
I mean, I can't necessarily tell you that if you end up with one of ones that I would bring you to the studio, let you hang out with us. Can't tell you that. Not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
But we're definitely interested in making sure that the holders of Rarity are seen by the studio.
That's awesome. Yeah, you will not get to stay on Joshua's couch if you hold one.
Definitely not a barbecue in my house. Definitely not.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm really just honestly like pretty impressed with how you guys are tackling this challenge. Like really sincerely and honestly, trying to not just say the things that feel good to say about crypto, which is like ownership, community, all these things, and like that stuff's got to show up somewhere. And in everything that you guys have done so far, and we've talked about, it really is about integrating these concepts in a real deep way into something that just hasn't had it before. And I respect that a lot. And again, how challenging it is, right? It's not all going to work. It's not all going to be successful, and like that's part of it. So I do think what you guys are working on here is very cool and also very, very, very important, and it's a pleasure to be involved in it. Before we kind of come up on the hour here, anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything else that we missed? Just kind of turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, there's one question in the chat, I think, that I'd like to tackle, and that's just why is the operator's NFT so inexpensive?
That's a good one.
It's really because it's a user acquisition strategy. We want to invite as many people as possible to participate. We don't want to price anybody out. We want to invite people in, and that's Francis talked about this a little bit earlier. Another thing that I want to make clear is that we don't need the money.
Yeah, we're not gaming the system to try to get the money. We
know
what we're doing there.
I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to be crass, or I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I'm saying we are on the rails to make a great game. We have funding. We are hiring like mad. We've gone from 6 people to 35 people in 6 months. We are growing our studio. So we don't need, it's not a fundraising moment for us. It's a promotional moment. And
it's a community building moment.
and let's get involved in the ecosystem, start to look forward to and anticipate that utility, the comics, the early access, and all the things. We want to invite people in, get people involved. And so it's about spreading the word, promoting the thing with a beautiful asset. We want to keep the price really low for those reasons.
Yeah. I saw another question from Nicholas, so I'll just answer that. It's about being
Yeah,
able to
sure.
sign in with Gmail, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I think that is definitely the route that we're going to go for an opt-in. So you could both do email and something like MetaMask, Trust Wallet, with the idea being that most Web2 gamers, I mean, I know in this space a lot, we talk about ownership and true ownership. Who owns what? Like, do you have the, like, if it's not your wallet, then you don't truly own it. But Web2 gamers, most of them don't care. And we shouldn't force the complexity of owning a wallet, making sure that you can hold the keys, making sure that you can protect those keys. That shouldn't be forced onto them. That should be something that they can opt into. They have time to educate themselves, and then just, if they want that, they can do that. But it's about making a system that's as open as possible, that supports both sides, and making sure both sides are happy.
Yeah.
You don't have to know that someone's a Web2 gamer, just like you don't have to know someone's a Web3 gamer. Both can kind of be happy with themselves and the solution they take. It's completely up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think building on what what Marky had said, like these moments in time for us are about helping our community grow. The more we have in our community, the more voices we have contributing to our project, the more we get signal on where we're trying to go as being the right direction or the wrong direction.
Yeah.
The more input and contribution / participation we can get from our community. These are the things that matter for us. As Mark had mentioned, not only is our community growing, but our studio is growing, and as our studio is growing, we are we're looking to bring in new people to the team, and so just calling it out, our studio is growing. Go check out the website, see what roles we got going on. If you feel like you got something to add, go find a role that might be a good fit for you, and come tell your story to us, and come hang out with us. Help us. There's people that are 100% smarter than us out there, and come participate in this thing with us, whether in the community or in the studio or both. That's the thing I wanted to leave everybody with. And most importantly, shout out to Echo Company and to our whole community for helping us as Web 2 become Web 3 game makers, and being patient and understanding with us as we learn what this space is about, but more importantly, in helping us educate everybody else as to what true AAA GameFi looks like.
Awesome. Okay, well, cool, guys. I really do appreciate your time. I think this was a good conversation. I appreciate you answering our questions, and thanks for everyone that put questions in the chat. Those were some, good ones. I appreciate that a lot.
Super good.
So yeah, watch out for the Mint this month. Stay tuned to the Shrapnel channel. Join the Discord if you're not in there already for the most up-to-date information.
And follow us on Twitter as well. Our Twitter handle is @PlayShrapnel.
@PlayShrapnel _ right?
There
@PlayShrapnel
is
_
No underscore.
No underscore.
Yeah, we secured it.
Fuck me. Yeah, okay.
And support Avalaunch, because Mark needs more coffee. Support Avalaunch. Keep supporting Avalaunch.
You guys have been great partners. Let me just say that Avalaunch has been super
Straight
consistent, very transparent, and I am very organized. You've created a clarity for us when we need it. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's our pleasure. It's you guys, teams like yours make our job really, really easy. It's really fun. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing it, and we'll have you guys back on probably in the near future.
Awesome.
Right
Thank
on.
you so
Look
much,
forward to
Mark.
it. Thanks so much, Mark.
All right,
As always.
Everybody have a great weekend.
You too.
See y'all.
Bye.